So it's really essential that we stick to these rules, please. So just to make you all aware that today's session is being recorded, and if you miss any details, then it'll be available on the NAPIC website following today's webinar. Throughout the session, I'd ask that you all please keep your microphones muted and ideally your cameras off throughout the presentations, because then that allows the speaker to be front and center without distractions and everyone to hear the detail discussed. Questions will be saved. Can we kind of funnel all questions to the dedicated question and answer session? We have quite a lot to get through in the presentation, so ideally we will focus them to the end. For the questions, can you raise your hand at the time, or we will be able to submit them in chat and we'll be able to field them throughout. And then at the very end of the session, we're going to be sharing a feedback form and a collaboration request form, which will then be able to help supporting pairing you up with potential partners. So without further ado, sorry, can I ask everyone to mute their microphones, please?
It's a very busy week. Yeah. What dates did you say?
Sorry, can we hold all questions to the question and answer session, please? This will be we'll address this in the presentation and then provide question answers in the part later on in the agenda. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rob, our Deputy Director, who is going to take us through a vision of what NAPIC is and then talk to us about CPF II. Thank you. Rob.
Okay, so thanks, Andy. These slides are quite wordy. There's quite a lot of information I need to get across, and we don't have a lot of time. So, but as Andy said, these will be shared at the end, and all the links are available in the slides. So if you miss anything now, either follow it up in the Q&A question, or you should be able to follow it up and view these slides at your own leisure in the future. So first of all, I thought I'd briefly give, for those who aren't aware, a recap of what NAPIC is all about and what we're planning to do. So the primary vision of NAPIC is to help alternative proteins go mainstream for a sustainable planet. And what this is, it's an industry academia collaboration, and what we're trying to build is a network based on these 4 pillars that you see here: perform, produce, people, and process, to really bring the alternative protein landscape forward in the United Kingdom, and to try to drive that alternative protein industry within the United Kingdom. So that's the purpose of NAPIC generally. Our ambition is, as you can see, what we hope to develop is an innovation ecosystem with over 300 industrial partners and over 50 academic partners. There are 4 key academic leads. That's the University of Leeds, the James Hutton Institute, of which I'm a member up here in Dundee, the University of Sheffield, and Imperial College in London. We have many other associated academics, and we have many other associated industry partners. What we're trying to do is we're trying to drive the UK to become a global superpower in alternative proteins. And as part of that, what we want to do is to develop a national protein strategy to help to drive this whole industry forward. The reason that we are doing this, and the reason that the UKRI, BBSRC and Innovate UK have funded this project, is there are various opportunities and wider impacts that the alternative protein industry can have within the United Kingdom. Those are vary from economic impacts. We know that by 2030, the alternative protein market globally is expected to be around 6.8 billion. So there's a real opportunity for economic growth within the United Kingdom if we can get ahead of this industry and really be a player in this industry. There are environmental wins to be had. Certainly if we move away from animal protein, or we produce more of our own animal feed, for example, by within the UK rather than importing it from overseas, this can work towards the UK government's net zero targets and help us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. There is potential for people to increase the amount of vegetables and plants that they're having within their diet as part of moving towards away from meat proteins and towards alternative proteins. And what we're hoping to do is to create new jobs and provide a diverse future workforce in this blended protein economy. How NAPIC will do that, and I think all of these activities are relevant to the collaborative programme funding. We wish to address innovation challenges which have been identified by industry as holding them back and causing them the issues in developing their products and developing their industrial processes. We wish to create a dynamic national knowledge base, so this would be an area where academics and industry can exchange knowledge, where industry can go to identify who might be able to help them to improve their understanding of their processes. We wish to prepare a workforce for the future, so we wish to train people in those areas, and we wish to facilitate access to innovation facilities by industry, where these innovation facilities are often present within the academic base. And I think that this collaborative programme fund, this industry academia funding, which we're now offering as part of NAPIC, helps us to address all of these different activities. What we wish to do are to address specific innovation challenges that have been identified by industry across these 4 different pillars: the produce, the process, the perform, and the people pillars. These innovation challenges, which I'll come to in more detail later, are around unlocking nature's potential. So this is really looking in the entire biome for protein and potential proteins for food and feed for the animal industry. We wish to identify and discover novel proteins, important peptides that are present in traditional proteins, and where those peptides can be replicated in alternative proteins to ensure that we maintain the functionality of those traditional proteins. Sorry, I've just slipped through my slides. There's this need to structure for functional properties and nutritional properties. So this is around ensuring that alternative proteins work within that finished product and provide the functionality that are currently provided by what we might call traditional proteins. We recognise that there are issues around sustainable bioprocessing at scale and the cost of that bioprocessing. Fermentation can be costly and expensive, and we're looking at ways of improving that fermentation, improving extraction of alternative proteins from their original source. And then, of course, there's the need to develop new metrics and standards to allow us to demonstrate equivalence between alternative proteins and those traditional proteins. And of course, if we wish to move to an alternative protein economy, then that has to be acceptable by the general population. So what we're trying to understand through a mixture of social sciences and psychological sciences, etc., is how we can encourage those consumer behavioural shifts towards alternative proteins. So that's a very brief overview of what NAPIC is about and what NAPIC is trying to achieve. So what I'll do over the next few slides is talk in more detail specifically about the collaborative programme funding, how you can access that programme funding, and what we hope to achieve through that collaborative programme funding. So essentially the idea is again to deliver to our core mission of accelerating the alternative protein industry in the UK. And we wish to do that through generating collaborative projects between UKRI eligible academic groups, and between research and between non-research partners. So this might be industry, this might be other governmental bodies, it could be regulatory bodies or that sort of thing. Our total budget across the whole of the collaborative programme fund is 4 million. In CPF I, we spent about 1 million. We're aiming to allocate approximately 2 million in the current CPF II. So there's about £2 million up for grabs. Funding is awarded to the academics or the research organisations. But to access that funding, your projects have to be co-designed with industry, and they have to address industry challenges. And challenges that industry are experiencing, these might be technical, they might be regulatory, they might be market challenges. You can see some examples there, and I'll give some more examples later on, but of what was funded in CPF I and the sort of thing that we expect to be funded in CPF II. A change from CPF I is that in CPF I, it was a single academic partner. We're now accepting multiple academic partners coming together, but there would still be an academic lead, and the financial caps on those awards remain unchanged. So if you have a £100,000 project, that £100,000 must be shared if there is more than one academic partner. You wouldn't be doubling up for the additional number of partners. The whole point behind this is to bridge the gap between scientific innovation and commercial adaptation. So it might be about validating laboratory research, ensuring that that laboratory research can transition to a production environment, those kinds of things. And we will fund 50% of the total project value, and match funding is required from industry. For the vast majority of the programs that we're offering, that funding can be in kind, although cash is always welcome and is welcomely received. But for the proof of concept ones, the industry contribution must be in cash, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in some of the other slides. Just to give an overview of what we're funding, so the NAPIC aims to go right the way from discovery right through to commercialization. A lot of our discovery research is what we're calling NAPIC frontier research, and that occurs within those 4 founding members of NAPIC, and staff members and postdocs are embedded within those 4 founding members. What we're offering here is the collaborative project funding, which is open to that much broader academic and industry base, and all academic UKRI eligible groups are welcome to apply for this funding. So what we're offering are 2 types of proof of concept funding. These value in their duration and in their total cost. So proof of concept 1 is up to a total project value of 200,000. It can run for up to 18 months. Proof of concept 2 is a slightly smaller project, running for 100,000 and running for up to 12 months. The key difference here is that for proof of concept 1, industry match contribution must be in cash. For proof of concept 2, that match contribution can be cash or in kind, or a combination of the 2. We then have demonstration projects, which are around demonstrating the viability of a new technology, a new process, support commercial adoption of something. These run, again, slightly shorter projects, tend to be nearer to commercialization. They run for up to 6 months, and the total project value is up to 50,000. We are offering innovation sprints, which are much smaller projects, which are really designed to very rapidly test or iterate ideas within a short time frame. And it might be about overcoming a key technical problem. Does my egg protein work in this product, or does this alternative egg protein work in this product? These tend to be 2 to 4 weeks, maximum funding of 20,000, or maximum project value of 20,000. And when we have 2 awards, we have a networking award, which is around bringing together groups around specific areas to allow networking events, workshops that might address specific challenges, and they're at any stage from discovery through to commercialization. These are a total project value of up to 10,000. And then we have mobility awards, which allow academic researchers to either go and gain experience of a process or a project, either within a company or within an international organization. So this is the only project where we are including, or project type where we're including international organizations. And in these mobility awards, there is an opportunity for a UK researcher to travel to an international research organization to perhaps pick up a new technique or understand a new process. As I said, the scope of these projects are based around our innovation challenges. These are unlocking nature's potential, where we're looking at the boosting protein quality and quantity from the complete biome. And you can see here plants, insects, food waste, aquaculture. We are interested in protein discovery. So these are looking at peptides that might be present in traditional proteins and seeing whether we can find those peptides or things which are able to replicate that peptide functionality within alternative proteins. It's about structuring and functioning proteins for nutritional benefits. So this might be how those proteins or alternative proteins are included in other matrices to actually produce foodstuffs, these types of things. As I said, enabling sustainable bioprocessing. So this is around fermentation industries. It may also be around extraction of alternative proteins and ways of processing those proteins to improve their functionality. Metrics and standards are likely to be important. So can we look for equivalence or provide metrics that demonstrate equivalence between different types of proteins? And this area around acceptability and accessibility. Just so you understand how the funding works, so what I've been speaking about now when I've been talking about the value of projects is the total project value. So The total project value, let's say for proof of concept 1, might be £100,000. If that's the case, then we expect a £50,000 contribution, either cash or in kind, from the non-research partner, the industry partner. So that in-kind contribution might be staff time, it might be access to the non-research partner facilities, it might be the production, the provision of raw materials, all of these types of things. Then the remaining 50% will be awarded by NAPIC, and that's in exactly the same way as UKRI grants are funded. We will provide 80% of the total full economic costs. So if that's a £100,000 project, the £50,000 would come from a non-research partner, £40,000 cash award would come from NAPIC to the lead research organisation, and then that research organisation will be expected to find the remaining 20% FEC, as I say, exactly as UKRI grants currently work. Just to give an overview of eligibility. So for all projects, the project lead must be a UKRI eligible research organisation. So that might be a university, might be an independent research organisation. All projects must be collaborative. And for all projects, with the exception of the mobility award, the project partners must be a UK registered business of any size, SME or large company. It can be a public sector or non-ministerial government department, could be a charity, could be a not-for-profit. International research organisations can participate in the mobility awards, but the funding for those mobility awards goes to the UK partner and allows them to travel to the international research organisation. For all projects, match funding must be 50%. And for all projects bar proof of concept 1, that's a larger proof of concept 1, that funding can be cash and or in kind or a combination of the two. For proof of concept 1, it must be cash. And the total project costs range from 200,000 to 10,000. And the project duration is from 18 months, maybe shorter for some of the other projects. Just to give you a few examples, I'm not going to run through these slides in any detail, but some examples from the CPF I of projects that were funded. So for proof of concept 1, there was a project about developing treatments to reduce astringency in pea proteins. The total grant value, so this is the amount of the grant from NAPIC, was 99,000. The project lead was King's College in London, and the partner there was Ingredium. Another example of a proof of concept 1 project that was funded was between the University of Leeds and Microlab, and that was about developing this NutriLab technology to deliver nutrients in alternative protein-rich applications. So just a very brief overview of some of the types of projects that might be awarded. Proof of concept 2, there were two projects, or two examples here. The first is an example about using spirulina to develop novel functional protein ingredients. That was between Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh and Scott Bio. Again, the grant value there from NAPIC was 50,000. That would have been a 40,000 cash payment to the Queen Margaret University, with QMU finding that other £10,000 internally. And then there was one between the Rao Institute, based in the University of Aberdeen, and as you can see here, multiple industry partners around trying to find more circular and sustainable ways of producing mushrooms and mushroom proteins. Some demonstration project examples here. So we have a new test method for characterization of alternative proteins, collaboration between Sheffield and New Food Innovation Limited. And again, another algal focus project on looking at cultivating green seaweeds onshore, I guess, under a land cultivation. So again, £25,000 grant value from NAPIC, University of Exeter Cornish Seaweed Company. An example of an innovation sprint here is something around optimizing black soldier fly nutrition. Presumably, I'm guessing there's new nutritional tests going on here. Very rapid project just to test some of those new nutritional components to see how they impact, and that was between the University of Nottingham, Fairbairn Knight and Sons. A couple of examples of networking awards. There's one here about bringing chef trainees together, I guess, with academics to understand to I guess, inform those chef trainees around alternative proteins, how they could be used and how they could be perhaps incorporated into their cuisine moving forward. That was Brunel and Flourish Food Science. And then something around developing educational resources about cellular ag, so cultivated meat, and trying to encourage greater understanding of what cultivated meat means. And that was Aston University and CELAG UK and the Good Food Institute. A couple of examples of mobility awards. There was one to the University of Reading, which allowed that transfer to the University of Granada. So this is an example of an international mobility award to work on precision fermented dairy proteins, and one between Teesside and Beijing Technology and Business, again looking at developing a new method for purification of a peptide from engineered bacteria. Eligible costs. So again, think about your UKRI grants and what's eligible within UKRI. We're following those same rules. So those are things like investigator research time, consumables, facilities, T&S directly related to project delivery. Studentships are not eligible, equipment over 10,000 is not eligible, publication costs are not eligible. I've spoken about the funding model, which is 80% FEC. And for the international mobility awards, those costs go only to the UK partner. They can't go to the overseas partner. There's some links here in the slide deck that you'll receive later. Just to give you an overview of what was funded in CPF I very briefly, the most popular funding stream was Proof of Concept 2. The innovation sprints were probably the least popular. The majority of focus areas were addressed, as were the majority of innovation challenges, although we received a little bit less around protein discovery. In terms of the sectors that were addressed, there was a little bit less interest from feed and service, and most of our pillars were nicely addressed, although the people pillar, excuse me, received slightly less interest. And in terms of geographic spread, it was quite nice, although we received slightly less interest from Wales and we received no project proposals or there was no successful funded projects into Northern Ireland. The reason I'm highlighting that is because in the current rounding, we are encouraging applications from institutions in Wales and Northern Ireland. We are encouraging applications from the broader academic base. There was, in the first round, probably not surprisingly, a little bit more interest from those core institutions, but we'd really like to see that expand out now. And we fully encourage all eligible institutions to please put in an application. We're encouraging applications along with the people pillar and also with the protein discovery and metrics and standards innovation challenges, and from the feed and service sectors. And the other thing that we're very interested in receiving are cross-pillar and cross-innovation challenge projects. And that's part of our thinking behind allowing more than one academic institution to take part in the same project, to perhaps allow that interdisciplinary working. For those of you who don't have collaborators, we have a few tools available to try to help you build collaborations. We have a form available, and there's a few screenshots of it here at the bottom of the slide, available at this link, which allows you to input details of your organisation, what contributions you can provide for collaboration, and what requirements you have for collaboration. You can also find a list of NAPIC partners on the NAPIC website to see who else is involved and who you might wish to collaborate with. The application process opens, as Andy said, on the 19th of January, closing in April. Essentially, this is all through the website. The first thing you need to do is ensure that your proposal aligns with the pillars, the sectors, the focus areas. Confirm the research partner and the non-research partners will be, and confirm from your non-research partner that they will provide that match funding. Then complete your application, which is an online application. Templates are provided, but because of the system that we have and the way the system works, unfortunately, you cannot save that template and return to it. So our suggestion is that you download that application form, complete it offline, and then paste it in. The processes are then the projects are then reviewed. Successful applicants are then, or both applicants are then notified. A sub-award letter is then issued from the University of Leeds as the primary grant holder. Collaboration agreements come in place, and then the project can get going. We do request for proof of concept projects an interim report, and for all projects a final report, just informing us how that's going so we can monitor the success of the programme. Further information is available on the website. You can contact funding at NAPIC UK. That funding available form is on the website, and those details are all available and all there. I've banged through that very quickly. I'll now stop and hand back to Andy to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Rob. That was a whirlwind trip through, but very informative. As we mentioned before, the slides and all information will be available on the website afterwards. So if anything was missed in that whirlwind tour, then you can pick it up later. So before we move on to the Q&A section, we'd like to bring in one speaker who was successfully funded in the previous round. And so Rob had already given a little bit of context of some of the types of projects, case studies that we'd funded previously, but I'd like to invite Oliver Fisher from the University of Nottingham to tell us a little more detail about his particular project that was funded. Oliver, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? So, fantastic.
Yes, Oliver, we can.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So, yeah, my name's Ollie. I'm a assistant professor in the Chemical and Environmental Engineering department at the University of Nottingham, and I work within the Food, Water, Waste Research group there. So my research kind of sits within the interface of bioprocessing, sensing, machine learning, with a focus on we can help use digital tools to accelerate the transition towards a circular economy. So today I'm going to share a bit of a story behind our NAPIC funded smart fermentation project. Not the technical results, because we've only just got started this month, but a bit more about how this project came about, how the collaboration formed, and why NAPIC was critical in making it happen. So next slide, please. So at a high level, this project is about kind of real-time monitoring of fungal protein fermentation. So the idea is relatively simple. We're going to use low-cost ultrasonic and optical sensors to look inside the fermentation process without taking samples, so it's kind of non-invasive and providing real-time information. So those measurements are then fed into machine learning models that will be able to predict some key performance indicators like protein yield and some fungal microstructure. So we can look for things like clumping and morphology that affect the kind of quality of the final single protein output. So why does this matter? So right now, a lot of SME producers are relying on kind of manual sampling, which is involves kind of slow offline laboratory analysis. And this means they haven't got access to the kind of real-time information and to support kind of data-driven decision making. So people often harvest maybe too early or over-process the fermentation and kind of risk losing kind of entire batches, which have significant kind of economic implications. So our process is aiming to kind of give process visibility, so producers know not only when to harvest, but also when things are starting to drift in away from how they should be. And we're also doing this with kind of real industrial waste. So we've got beetroot, spent algae, and apple waste. So it's not just about developing a smart fermentation process, it's about developing that kind of waste to protein circular food system. So next slide, please. So I know everyone in the room has lots of experience in writing funding proposals, so I'm not going to kind of give the complete process, but I'm just going to share a few things that worked for us when putting together this project. So as Rob mentioned, NAPIC funding is really kind of industry focused. So we really started by working with our industrial partners to identify what are some of the industrial pain points, like I mentioned in the last slide about kind of slow manual testing and the lack of transparency of what's going on within the fermenters and the kind of economic implications this would happen when things go wrong. We then did a bit of a kind of commercial analysis to identify, okay, what solutions already exist out there, what's the gap, what aren't they doing, and what could our ideas do to fill this gap. and then kind of shaping ideas we've already been working on. We're back towards the NAPIC focus on kind of going away from maybe broad smart fermentation, but to that kind of protein focus. And again, working with the industry to kind of co-design this idea to make sure that we're hitting those industrial pain points, and then mapping it to the NAPIC pillars around for our project process and produce. And then, like all grant proposals, developing a kind of delivery focused plan to develop this technology and appraise it, but then also outlining a kind of commercial roadmap to take it beyond the funded project, and making the kind of innovation and impact really transparent and explicit across the proposal, and where possible making it kind of tangible with numbers to really demonstrate that. Next slide, please. So why NAPIC? So NAPIC was a really good fit for this project because we're in that kind of awkward middle space where research council funding was too kind of early stage. We kind of got this scientific idea that's been developed, but we need some support to kind of translate it to industry. So industry funding would consider this project maybe too risky. So NAPIC really kind of sits quite nicely in that kind of valley of death bit where you've got this idea developed at university, you want to get it out into industry, but you need someone to provide that support to really get over that valley to start that commercial journey. So NAPIC was really good at kind of offering support to kind of build those academic industry partnerships and funding to kind of build that demonstration unit that we can then focus on translating out there into industry. Without the NAPIC funding, there's a risk that this will kind of very much kind of stayed research paper, lab scale, rather than using the proof of concept to enable us to build that demonstration unit to start that pathway to have the impact. Next slide, please. So just finish on a few kind of takeaways from this process. So firstly, again, starting with the industrial problem. So not the kind of the novelty in the method or the technique, but what's the real pain point that someone's willing to pay money to solve. So it's the NAPIC funding requires that in-kind contribution or direct contribution from industry. It's really important to align with what your industrial partners want to get out of this project. Where possible, start to build those partnerships before the funding calls open, so that you've already got that existing relationship, so you hit the ground running, and really kind of help you identify what's a genuine need that the industry faces, and get some honest feedback as you develop in the idea to make sure you're staying aligned. Within this funding call, making sure that you kind of balance the academic ambition with the industrial deliverables. So yes, we're kind of doing some novel things around the sensor and machine learning, but linking all the objectives back to what's the kind of real industrial problem this is going to solve, related to the cost of sensors. Is it going to be reliable? Is it going to be scalable beyond this project? As you're developing your ideas and writing the proposal, watch out for kind of projects scope creep. So there's lots of exciting ideas we could have taken this project down, but remembering it's a 1-year defined project, and so really having some discipline here to keep the scope really tight and aligned to what NAPIC's after, and really helps make the project fundable. And then lastly, just using this opportunity to really get your research out there and move towards real world impact. So NAPIC's kind of enabling us to do kind of pilot trials and IP development in order to do that kind of follow-on commercial journey that we're hoping to achieve with our project. So that was just a really brief overview of our project. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions now, or you can always get in contact with me with kind of LinkedIn, email address, if you have got any questions throughout this. Thanks everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Oliver. That was fantastic and really helped set the context of NAPIC's collaborative program funding. So now we're going to move on to question and answer portion of the session. So if you have any questions for either the NAPIC team, including Rob, about his presentation and some of the details of this call, or indeed for Oliver about his experience, then please do either raise your hand and we will bring you into the conversation, or please do put them in chat and we'll address them We have roughly about 10 minutes to keep the time on this session, and then we're going to move to breakout sessions where we can start pairing you up, and I'll come back to tell you about some rules for that. Okay, so I think does anyone have any questions? Can I invite questions forward? I see there's a few in chat at the moment, which have not been addressed. So can I pitch this to Rob? There's 2 questions in chat. One, if you have more than one commercial partner, industry partner, does this affect the in-kind contribution amount?
No, the in-kind contribution remains the same, and that can be split between the industry partners.
Thank you very much. Number 2, regarding IP, who owns the generated IP from the projects? Will this stay with the RO and partner, or does NAPIC have a claim?
No, I think I'm right in saying, Andy, that NAPIC doesn't have a claim, and that will be part of the collaboration agreement where that IP lies.
That's absolutely right. So NAPIC does not have any involvement in these projects directly, and so as a condition of the award, the RO or multiple ROs and partners need to form a collaboration agreement which includes specification about IP share and allocation. So NAPIC is not involved in that collaboration agreement and is not therefore party to any of the IP from the project. Next, does funding include research for non-human consumption, companion animal agriculture, packaging, plant-based textiles? Rob, do you want to jump on that one?
Sorry, could you repeat that list of categories again, please?
Does it provide funding for non-human consumption? So companion animals,
alternative feeds, yes, is definitely something that would be considered. Yep.
Packaging and plant-based textiles, no.
I think we would plant-based textiles, maybe, yeah, possibly. I think all of those would probably fall within scope. Kieran, would you like to comment as I've got you online?
Yeah, I think that's right, Rob. I think we're looking at both environmental and health impact. So something like that probably would. But, you know, I mean, it's at the end of the day, we'll be evaluating according to the meeting the mission of NAPIC. So if there's other projects that are more closely aligned with our mission, they'd be ranked higher, obviously, in any assessment.
The mission of NAPIC, a reminder, is on food and feed. So food for human consumption, but also into alternative proteins for feed, which goes into animal agriculture, which ultimately then comes back to human consumption. So just as a reminder of that, of NAPIC's core mission, that's where we're going to be focusing our awarding. Okay, moving on. Rob, for the proof of concept, does the industry partner need to provide full in-cash contribution, and would that need to be 100K? So for proof of concept 1.
So for proof of concept 1, the value of the total project award is up to 200,000. So that's between 100,000 and 200,000. So any proof of concept project has a total project value over 100,000. 50% of the total project value has to be a cash contribution from the industry partner. If the proof of concept project has a value lower than 100,000, that contribution can be cash or in kind or a mixture of the two. Yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I think that answers that one. Thank you. I see hand up, which is Li Jing.
Yeah. My question is already on the top. Probably you have missed that. And it's very simple, Rob. For mobility award, does he allow to fund the international visitors, like coming from international? No.
Well, okay. The money would go to the UK partner. Yeah. Kieran, can that UK partner then use that money? I think within the UK they can spend that to accommodate the visitor, can't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. The money goes to the UK research organisation, and they can spend it. So they can't subcontract and send the money to a non-UK research organisation, but they can pay for the travel and pay for the accommodation of visiting scientists, for example.
Thank you.
Perfect. Another question here. Could developing decision-making models for alternative protein scenarios be funded?
I believe that could, and that would probably fall possibly under the people pillar. Yeah, so I don't see that as being out of scope. Would you agree with that, Kieran?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
I think that's right. If you would like a little more advice, though, perhaps email into the funding inbox for a little more detail about that scope, because that's probably on the edge of where we are with our scope at the moment. How many bids did you receive for CPF one? What was the success rate in securing funding?
I'll let you answer that,
Andy. So with the first round, then we had a very tight timeline for the turnaround for the projects and for people to develop their projects. So we did have a reasonable submission to the first round. I can confirm that we funded 30 projects. I think 29 came through in final contracting. I'm not going to comment on the success rate exactly, because it will be very different in this round. We obviously, for the first round, we had a higher success rate than you would expect otherwise, because the number of projects that was able to be submitted in the time frame was a lot smaller than we will get this round, I imagine. So I'm not going to comment any further on that, I'm afraid.
I think it's fair to say, though, that compared to BBSRC responsive mode, it's a pretty good bet. I think we can say that.
Okay, there's a couple of really long ones here. After 2 seconds. There's a question around insect protein applications from Jeff Knott. Could I invite you, Jeff, to verbally contribute your question rather than me reading out this lengthy one? Do you have would you like to join in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, can you hear me okay, Andrew?
Yes.
Brilliant. Cheers. Yeah, I've got a couple of hats. I'm chair of the UK Edible Insect Association, so really keen to get our sector to come forward, because I know back early last year we had one of your team come to us, which was really promising. But my other hat, I have a cricket protein farm here in the UK in Norfolk, and we're working with University of Surrey and Aberystwyth on an ongoing PhD project, actually conducting human trials, and it's cricket protein for human health and performance. And we're looking for a bit of funding to conduct some amino acid analysis. Like, we've already collected the samples, but what it'll do is we think it'll unlock the consumer barriers that we're facing specifically for our sector, but also all alternative proteins. So that's kind of the angle we're looking for. It's looking for like 20k to conduct that, feed it into consumer market messaging, and unlock the commercial growth there. Thanks.
And the question is, would that be eligible? I think that absolutely sits within what NAPIC's interested in. Absolutely.
Right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's nice and easy. There's another question here with a couple of likes, which is about, could we explain a little more about what's in scope for the people pillar? What does this cover exactly? For example, would work looking at consumer behaviours, acceptability, access fall under the people pillar, or something different? Well, I think the easy answer is that all of those areas that you've just mentioned there are 100% the focus of the people pillar. More details about the people pillar is on the website, though, and we can certainly help kind of help with what is in scope for people pillar. But it's pretty much exactly what you just described.
And I think it's fair to say, Andy, that we're not just funding natural science, social sciences, psychological sciences, all those sorts of things would fall within the scope of that people pillar.
Absolutely. There's another question here, which is about, can the application include a proof of concept component, and can it also be submitted in combination with a network and mobility award, particularly when the combination involves international partners? So I think the answer to that one, and please correct me if I'm, or please jump in, Rob and Kieran, on that, is all three applications would be independent. So you can submit applications to the multiple to different streams. There's no limitation on you submitting multiple applications, but there's no benefit to linking them together, and they'll be considered independent of each other. We'll not be providing any uplift for connected projects.
Thank you, Andrew.
Are there any other questions that I see? Otherwise, I think we're probably reasonably on time. Oh, another question. Can animal feeds that do not go back into the human food chain be considered, i.e. equine or dog feeds?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So companion
Okay.
animals are part of the remit.
If there are no further questions at this point in time, then I think we'll move on to it. Roughly perfect timing, actually, on to the breakout session section. I'll give you a reminder, though, that